Now, being able to make selections quickly and efficiently is definitely a skill every Photoshop designer should have. And in this video, we're just going to cover a few scenarios that I run into pretty much all the time when I'm building composites or just need to extract design elements or anything like that. And this first one here is actually, it's actually me on a white background. This is actually shot for a composite we were working on for Photoshop World, actually. And if you were there, you know this was the meetup poster. And we kind of did it in the spirit of The Hangover, and we shot all of us on a white background, as you see right here. And now I need to go ahead and extract it so I can put it as part of the composite. So I'm just going to show you how I went about extracting the element. And since it's shot on a white background, and if you have the ability to shoot on a solid backdrop like this, I would recommend that white tends to be the easiest, unless your subject is going to be draped in white or wearing white clothing. Putting your subject against a white background is going to make it a lot easier to extract. A lot of people think green screen is the way to go, but that really is only helpful if you're working with video. Static images you can extract. There are techniques to do that. You can even use this technique, but what I notice about green screen especially is that it tends to spill over the green onto the subject, so white really is going to be the best option in this case. So what I do is I'll just go over here into the toolbar and grab my magic wand selection tool, and up in the options bar, going to check the tolerance setting here. And normally it's around 30 as the default, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 25 here. And just go ahead and click once in that background. It selects the entire background, and everything inside of the subject, myself here, seems to be unselected. Now this area down here in the lower right corner is left unselected because it was a little bit outside the range here. So I'm just going to hold down the Shift key and click in that area, and it adds it to the selection. So let's zoom in here. And I see this area between the hand. Now, since this is outside of the selected area, I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and it brings up that little plus sign, as you can see right there. And I'll just click once in that area and add it to the active selection. So selecting the background is much easier in this case because it's solid. Whereas my subject, there's there's a lot of things, different shades of color, and there's different tones and everything like that. It would just be a nightmare to try and start this selection with the subject. But select the easiest part first, and then just inverse it. So in this case, I've got all of the background selected. Go under the select menu and choose inverse. Now it's flipped it around, and now I am selected. The subject is selected in the image. So now I'm just going to go ahead and click on Refine Edge, and I've pretty much made it a habit at this point. No matter how good my selection I think it might be, I always go over here and click on Refine Edge, and I can actually see really how good it is and modify it from there. So I'm going to actually change the view mode to on black, so it actually allows me to see any kind of haloing or artifacts that are going to be around the edge of the subject here, and you can see there's quite a bit. So using the Refine Radius tool, I'm just going to paint around the edge, and you can see it really cleans it up quite nicely. I haven't touched any other controls. See, it's kind of rough and stair-stepping on that side there. So we'll just drag that along there, and that cleans up all of that area quite nicely. There we go. So a little bit of areas with the hair on my arm right there. And that just really cleans up the selection, makes it look really nice. So again, look at it as a black and white, so you can see how it would appear as a layer mask. And I can see right here that there are a couple areas. Let's do erase refinements and just go in here and make it a little bit smaller, and touch on a few of these areas that are inside of the subject area so we don't necessarily get them. I wouldn't worry too much about getting them super accurate because we can fix them even after the fact. So I think that looks pretty good. So let's look at it on layers, on transparency. And I think that looks pretty good. Now you'll notice there's some areas of transparency in the shirt and everything like that. That I'm going to leave alone because we'll take care of that in a moment. So that looks pretty good. So I'm just going to go down here and have it go ahead and output a new layer with layer mask, and we'll click OK. And there it is, nicely extracted. And then what I can do is, here's a cool trick. If you press Command J and duplicate the layer, notice those little haloed edges get filled in. And it looks really nice. So now we have a nice clean extraction of the subject. So let's merge those layers down and apply the layer mask, and now our subject is extracted. Now I just got rid of the layer mask, but you don't have to get rid of the layer mask necessarily if you wanted to maintain that. But now I've got my subject nicely extracted, and I can bring it onto the composite or whatever design I'm working on. Now another scenario is talking about making luminosity-based selections when you have objects like this that are against the background, and you want to extract it to, again, put it on a design or composite or something like that. Now, differently from earlier, we use the magic wand to start the selection. In this case, we're going to use the channels palette. And I'm just going to go over here, and inside the channels, we're going to hold down the Command key on Mac, Control on Windows, click directly on that RGB preview channel, loads all the brightness values as an active selection. So it's selecting the entire background, which is white. It's very bright. And then some subtle areas inside of the subject here. Now, just like before, I'm going to go under Select and choose Inverse. And I'm going to press Command J. Now, that area has been now extracted to its own layer, as you can see right here. But it's very, very flat. It's lost a lot of its vibrancy, and that's only because we've only selected and copied partial areas of it based on the lightness and darkness of that selection. But here's a cool trick. Once you have one layer extracted, simply hold down Command or Control and then press J 3 or 4 times, and notice how it builds the density for each duplicate layer, building it back up to the way it was before. So once you have it where you like it, just go ahead and select all the layers and press Command or Control E, merges and ball back down. Now you've got subtle transparency where you want it, and you've got the glass and liquid extracted from the background. And again, same thing here. I use splash elements a lot in my images. I'll actually just go in here, do the same thing. RGB channel, Command or Control click directly on it. Inverse. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and create a new blank layer and fill it with white. So now I have that water extracted as a white background element. So if I have a photo here, for instance, and I'll just take it and drag that water element over here. So you can see, oh, it's got a splash on her face. But yeah, you can see that water element has been extracted, and now it's got, I can use it as a background element or do whatever. But just by using luminosity-based selections, as well as using any of the selection tools, but that refine edge is definitely key. In fact, I'll bring that image back up here a moment. Here is a selection, and often designers always wonder, what about subjects with hair? So here in this case, I'll do the exact same thing, except I'm going to go ahead and use the quick selection tool and just select the subject. And notice I'm just getting the general area of the hair is all you really need. And then let's, again, do the refine edge. And let's go ahead and let's go leave it on that clear background. And I'm just going to increase the size of my brush. Again, adjusting no features, but merely just painting in the areas where I know I saw the hair in there, and watch how accurately it snaps back and refines that selection around the hair. So this is really unprecedented. There's nothing like this before inside Photoshop without the use of a plugin or other third-party applications. You're able to get really, really accurate selections now just within Photoshop, and being able to modify them right here inside the program is a huge advantage. And again, don't be too super accurate. Notice there's some areas of transparency. Remember, like I said, if I bring this out as a new layer, and I go ahead and press Command J and duplicate the layer, notice how that area gets filled in. So you don't necessarily have to invest a tremendous amount of time trying to get that selection perfect, but rather get it to where it looks pretty good and doesn't overdo it, and then just go in here and duplicate those layers and build that density back up, and your subject will be nicely extracted and all the elements will be there. So some things to think about when it comes to selections inside Photoshop. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is actually working with text and how you can take advantage of using the different text features and to get yourself working more quickly and efficiently.